Hey, can you do me a favor and add a few lines at the end of the script?
Yeah.
There is audio going through.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah. Okay, there we are. We are up.
Cool. We are live.
Very cool. Yep. Well, I'm looking at YouTube right now. So is our audio up?
The audio is up, but
Okay.
I don't think you're live on Facebook yet.
Okay.
All right. Well, hang on, YouTubers. We're getting live on Facebook right now. Stand by. Stand by. I remember when broadcasts used to start at one time. If you're watching us on YouTube, hang on. We're going live on Facebook here in just a minute, and we'll fill you in on what's going to happen tonight.
We will.
All right. All right. We there? Keep talking.
Cool.
Keep talking.
All right.
If you are watching right now, thanks for joining us. You have the opportunity to comment tonight and give us your questions. Just write in your questions. Tell us where you're watching this from. Where are you tuning in from? What corps did you march with? Would love to know that as well. When did you march? What's your favorite DCI show?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Favorite year for me?
Yes.
1992. Great year for drum corps. I don't know, what else could we ask them? Maybe their predictions for who's going to win this year?
Predictions for 2019, always welcome. Put them in the comments.
Put them in the comments. Tina's going to be watching those comments and is going to be asking your questions, and we'll be saying hi to you too throughout the night. So tell us where you're watching from, okay? We've lost Jeff. I don't know where he went. There he comes. Are we live everywhere, Jeffrey? We are.
We are
All right.
live.
We have millions and millions of viewers now. Millions.
Across the world.
Shall we begin?
So go for it.
Go for it? All right. Well, let's get started.
All right.
Good evening from Indianapolis. Dan Potter and Tina Pliagas with the wrap-up of the second day of the DCI annual meetings and the Health, Wellness, and Safety Summit. It's been a productive day, hasn't it?
It has, with lots of breaking news as well, much of it focused on participant safety. The DCI News Network has posted lots of articles and videos covering all of those stories on the DCI YouTube channel, our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, and of course at DCI.org.
Easily, the headline story of this Friday is the election of 3 members to serve on the DCI Board of Directors. Incumbent DCI Board Chair Kathy Black re-elected to another term. Former Blue Coats Director David Glasgow will continue to be a presence in this activity as David Glasgow is elected to an at-large position on the DCI Board. And a new board member, Blue Stars board member Jonathan Powell, was elected also to serve on the DCI board. We posted, in fact, an interview with Jonathan earlier today.
We did, and along with that, we also covered some breaking news when it was announced that Drum Corps International was entering into a major collaboration with 2 national groups, Varsity University and the National Federation of State High School Associations. The groups will offer comprehensive educational programming to schools and athletic programs, all related to participant safety and health. These programs will include Varsity Spirit's maltreatment of athletes curriculum and compliance courses, which is a curriculum based on their experience with screening 4,000 seasonal employees through background checks and compliance training each year. There's also a new marching music certification course that is now available as well.
We looked at bylaws today, too, and in fact, we posted an interview this afternoon with Phantom Regiment's Rick Valenzuela and the troopers John Masterson as they are tightening up and clarifying the bylaws of Drum Corps International. You got to understand, some of these bylaws go back to 1972, to DCI's founding, and things have just been added on and added on, so it's a priority in the DCI strategic plan to revise these and to tighten these bylaws. The group set a deadline of April 1st to complete its revisions of the bylaws and to forward those changes to the membership of DCI for consideration and for a vote by April 21st.
And all of that just scratches the surface of the stories that we've covered here today. I got details on the 2019 summer tour with DCI Sue Keenhold. Dan interviewed employment law expert Julie Maselli about her presentation to the DCI voting membership on best practices for hiring and vetting staff and volunteers. And we both learned about protecting our hearing from Don Campbell at Ear Racers. In fact, Dan even got fitted for a pair.
Yeah, I'm not wearing them right now, but I love my ear racers. That was a lot of fun. The other big development on this Friday, I guess, has been the fact that the number of participants here has grown. We've had now the members of the Corps' instructional staffs show up. They got here today. They're in fact having their sessions right now as we speak, along with the Rules and Systems Task Force. We'll have much more on the RSTF, the Rules and Systems Task Force, tomorrow, and in particular, one issue that they're considering very closely. Stay tuned for that. That's coming up tomorrow. And of course, last but not least, DCI's drum majors are here now. The World and Open Class drum majors have arrived for their Leadership Summit, which is also underway as of this moment.
Indeed it is. And now it is time for your questions for our special guest tonight. We started this last night with our broadcast and got some fantastic questions from you all.
I love the interaction, and this is really cool. We're going to spend some time with a guy who is a Hall of Fame drum corps designer and drill writer, and is also creative director of the reigning DCI World Champion Santa Clara Vanguard, Michael Gaines.
And we want to see all of your questions for Michael, so make sure you post them now in the comments, and I will be back shortly to ask them for you guys.
All right, thanks, Tina.
Thank you, Dan.
You know, it's been 15 years, believe it or not, since I first got the opportunity to interview Michael Gaines. For me, that was a huge get back then. I don't think Michael had done an in-depth interview before we chatted, and he's kind of a shy person by nature, although I don't know if he's as shy now as he was then. Michael helped turn the Cavaliers into a dynasty that dominated DCI's top spot for most of a decade before leaving drum corps, but not marching music. He was gone from DCI for 7 years. He returned 2 seasons ago as Vanguard's creative director, and then last season added the duties of drill writer as well. Michael Gaines, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
I went back and looked at that interview we did in 2003.
I was a baby.
We were both quite a bit younger. I think you were nursing a cold that day too, weren't you?
I definitely remember not having a voice.
The first question I put down here, because this being maybe more famous than you, Michael Gaines, Kayak, your dog.
Kayak gets top billing.
How's Kayak
He's
doing?
awesome. He's 2.5, almost 3 years old now.
He's a Labrador?
Yeah, black lab. And yeah, he's awesome.
If you
he's
follow
awesome.
Michael on Facebook, you know the adventures of Kayak. Life with Kayak, I think it's called.
That's right.
2018 Santa Clara Vanguard World Championship.
Yeah.
How does, looking back on it now, can you put it in perspective for us?
Yeah, it was one of my favorite experiences overall when it comes to the marching arts pageantry. You know, it was, it's always special with new kids, new group kind of a thing, but just everything was just really magical the whole season. You know, I mean, we had the usual things you go through with any drum corps, but overall everything just seemed to click. The performers were amazing, like really, really special performers, and I think that everything else was built from there.
Do you have now, all these months later, a favorite moment from Babylon?
Favorite moment from Babylon? Yeah, you know, I think I would probably have to go overall with the ballad. Specifically, I always loved the baritone duet. Yeah. You know, just I could listen to those guys play all day long. I mean, just the sound, the tone quality. But overall, the whole ballad just was the one where I always felt all the emotions.
It did seem like in a show that was packed with effect, that was the crest right there.
Yeah, and it was nice the way that it affected the audience as well. You know, especially towards the latter half, you just felt that swell of support for the performers, and you know, you could see they were putting their hearts into it, and it was really a special moment, I think.
It's interesting that you bring up that effect on the audience, because I went back and watched that 2003 interview today, and we actually had a discussion in which you talked about you really hadn't figured out yet what pushes an audience's buttons. That you would maybe design a big effect into a show and it would be golf applause, but then there was something that you would put in a show that you wouldn't think twice about, and that would cause a standing ovation. Are you still trying to figure that part out?
You know, I am. I really am. For example,
the horns up. I knew you were going to go
I figured
there.
you were going to bring it up. Might as well talk about the elephant. Yeah. The horns up was, you know, one of the most talked about things in the show, and it was a horns up. You know, but it was just somehow clicked at the right time, and it brought that bit of tradition, you know, Vanguard, but as well as the entire activity that people could relate to, into a show that, you know, we tried to have innovation in there, but we also tried to have a little bit that everyone could grab onto, and that was part of it, and that seemed to really resonate with people, almost an appreciation that, okay, we haven't forgotten where we're from, you know, like we can still incorporate those kind of things.
And that was exactly the discussion we had 15 years ago, that you were talking about how much of what a core's identity has been in the past should you bring into this show today versus how much innovation needs to be in that show.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, it's a tough line to walk for sure. With Vanguard, it was very, and still is very important to, you know, be true to the name and try to keep pushing things. But I also respect the history of that core as well as the activity, and know that we'll always want to have something there for people of all generations to grab onto. But it's not an easy thing to you know, to nail. You know, sometimes you hit it, sometimes you miss it, but there's always the attempt.
Well, so now we're well into the off season of 2019. Where in the design process do you find yourself in early January?
Early January. This year, it's interesting because I would say it's about the same as the last couple of years, but just shows start with different things. For example, I know before I got there in 2017, the whole show idea kind of started with the idea of the prop, you know, whereas last year the whole show idea started with a piece of music, My Body is a Cage, Paul Rennick had sent to me in the middle of the summer. And then this year it's starting more conceptual. So everything is about the same, but you're just coming at it from a different angle. So, and it keeps it interesting.
It's interesting, and I obviously you can't share a whole lot about the 2019 show.
Nothing.
Nothing. Except that you just said you're coming at the design from more of a concept than a piece of music or a piece of you know, a set piece.
Yeah, yeah. So far, that's the way it's developed. You know, there's a lot of time for change with that, but I think, you know, every show that I've been involved with, every creative process starts from different areas. You know, and no one is easier than the other. It just, you know, you kind of find the thing that everyone it resonates with everyone, and you go with that. And yeah, this year it was conceptual. And then you start finding pieces of music that resonate, and how does that mold the concept into something that you didn't start with, and those kind of things. And that's the fun part, you know. We didn't even have the title of last year's show until, I want to say, end of April maybe.
Wow.
I remember being at camp and we're like, okay, well, we had ideas, but we didn't decide the name of that show until then, which is scary.
Yeah. Okay. Are you similarly scared right now?
Not on that aspect.
Okay,
No.
all right. See,
There's still some evolution. But
I'm trying to walk a very fine line here.
It's fine.
So, okay, I really, how far are you in the design process? Do you have the music picked out? Do you have the concepts picked out?
We have concepts picked out and we have music picked out. Yes.
Okay. All right.
And that's all I have to say about
all
that.
All right, good. When you first start writing a drill, because obviously that was where you were 15 years ago, was the preeminent drill writer. You've added artistic or creative director to that title. But when you're writing a drill, you know, 15 years ago, visual was all about the drill. Now, visual encompasses so much more, and in Santa Clara's show last year, you could argue that the set pieces and their movement and how they expanded and contracted was equally visually important as the drill. Is that a fair assessment?
For sure, for sure. I mean, when you have something that has that much visual weight just to start with, let alone, you know, conceptual and logistical things, it just has a visual weight to it. So you have to be really careful with how you stage them, and they do become as important, if not more important, than just the bodies. You know, one person cannot match the visual weight of one of those props, so you have to be careful with how you compose things. And they, you know, they were challenging for sure. You know, there was always, if you're going to move them, someone has to move them. You know, and who do you pick for that? what if everyone's playing? Can I borrow a couple mellophones, or or color guard? And you try to mix it up so that not one section bears the brunt of all the moving of the furniture,
Right.
kind of thing. But overall, it was really fun to work with them. Stressful at times because of the logistics, but it added an element, I feel like, to the creative palette, I guess, that you could use to design with.
Is it harder? Well, okay, but it also takes a little bit away from that palette too, in terms of you don't have that big wide open space to make pretty pictures in either.
Yeah, at least for last year's show, we started pretty condensed and kept it tight for a while, and then relaxed it and opened it up until the end, where you saw more of the wide open forms. So yeah, for sure. But I think the trade-off for me was more interesting because we actually could design up instead of out. Because since time began, we designed out, but we haven't really had the opportunity to design. I haven't had the opportunity to design up as much as those allowed.
Yeah, drill has really become three-dimensional now.
It has, yeah.
Is that the future?
I've found that everything in our world kind of comes and goes in cycles. But I will say that having elements to take us out away from a football field and put us into a different type of environment, or to feel like you're watching a stage show, I think that's the future. I think anything we can do to not have to look at yard lines and football helmets on our stage is a good thing. Now, like I said, everything comes in cycles, and props like that are really hard to deal with. And 2 years from now, we might be talking. Everyone's like, forget it. It's too much money. It's too much. You have to get another truck. You have to, all those kind of things. And so, maybe one of these days, everyone's going to go back to the basics. Maybe we'll have an anniversary year where everyone agrees, let's do DCI unplugged. I'd be into it.
Would you? I mean, do you miss pure drill?
Do I miss it?
And
I do a lot of it. I think the way that we're able to design now is more interesting to me.
Okay.
Using drill, I love drill, but it has to be interesting. It has to have a purpose. It has to speak to someone, and I find that doing it in certain ideal moments is a better way to approach that. Making sure everything's staged properly, but using it more as an effect throughout.
Get your questions in right now for Michael Gaines. We'll start asking him in just a moment. You initially got into drill writing through Indoor Winter Guard, right?
Yes.
You wrote for Guards in the late 80s, early 90s.
Correct.
And then Steve Brubaker was writing for Cavaliers at that time,
Yes.
kind of mentored you, and Greg Poglocki. I can never say his last name
Poglocki,
right.
yeah.
Those were your mentors. Also in that 2003 interview, you mentioned Mark Sylvester as having a big influence on you.
Yeah.
Who influences you today? Or what?
I actually find that today, it's interesting because I'm actually like best friends with many of my competitors. You know what I mean? And so I look to them, and I actually often think of some of my friends who write for the other corps when I'm doing something. Like I might think, oh, Leon is going to love this, Leon from Boston, or John from Bluecoats, or you know what I mean? Like people who practice the craft on a regular basis that might pick up on something that maybe other people wouldn't.
Right.
And so I get really inspired. Like I like to sit with those guys and watch shows and just banter and talk about things we notice, or give each other crap about things, And so I get really inspired by seeing what they bring to the table every time, And Jay Murphy, I mean, how long has he been creating masterpieces? I mean, he still inspires me. Just the staging perfection that he has with the instruments,
Is what you do and what we do as an activity. I asked you this in 2003. I want to see if your answers changed at all. Is it an art? Is it art?
Yes.
Is it art?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I firmly believe that. Yeah. I can't imagine it being any less of an art than traditional ones, because you use all the same design principles. People often like saying that we have degrees for music but not for visual. I'm not sure that's true. You've got design principles that can be applied to any of the traditional art forms as well as what we do.
Yeah.
And so I think it fits nicely right in with those. The only difference is, you know, it's over time. You know, it's not a static photo, sculpture, you know, painting. You have to do it over 11 minutes, which is hard because it's got to look good for 11 minutes as opposed to the final masterpiece, you know.
I hadn't thought about that. You want to take some questions?
Sure.
Some other questions?
easy.
Come on, Tina. Come back out here.
We've got plenty, that's for sure.
All right. What do you got?
Well, the first one is, when you were young, what did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was young, oh.
When? What?
What did I want to be when I grew up? You know, I don't remember when I was really young. I know in high school my plan was to go into music education, and I decided literally about a month or two before college that I wasn't going to do that. And I veered into business school because I didn't know what else to do at that point. I just decided, I knew I wanted to be involved with this, I just wasn't sure if I wanted to be a band director, basically.
Okay. So at one point you did think marching music could be your full-time job, changes, and now it looks like you're back.
Well, it's always been my full-time job, really. I'd never had, in my adult life, I've always been self-employed except for maybe about 6 months. I had a part-time job out of college using my dusty finance degree.
It occurs to me, we mentioned the 7 years that you left DCI, and not everybody will know that you stayed involved in marching music and pageantry, a lot of it overseas at that point, right?
Yes, I did a lot of work, specifically in Japan, a couple other places, and then obviously during the winter and a lot of fall bands that I stayed doing all of that. But yeah, I worked more on the indoor shows during that time away and
Pride
kind of
of Cincinnati.
Pride of Cincinnati, Aimachi, those kind of groups, and I think it was good. It was good. It was a nice break to kind of re-energize myself and figure out some different ways of doing things, you know.
All right. So what is your best piece of advice then to a budding drill designer?
Best piece of advice: keep your eyes open, watch around you. If you are someone who's like maybe coming out of high school or is looking to get into it, try to teach, volunteer, get around people that do it and find out what you like. And that's not the only reason, just to watch what they do, but also to network. Because even though, you know, there's a lot of people in the activity, it's still pretty, you know, word of mouth in a lot of ways. And that's where you kind of get your ins, is just knowing people and developing relationships. And then start designing your drill. Take a high school drill and redo it, you know, on the computer. You know, same music, just do it your own way, and develop a portfolio that you can show someone, I'm competent, give me a chance. Maybe even do it, you know, pro bono for free the first couple of years, and prove yourself, do quality work, and from there you shouldn't have any problem doing more.
What software do you use now?
I use Piware.
You use Piware.
Yeah, that's the only one I've ever used. There's a couple others out there that I've never tried, so I don't have any opinion on that. But Piware's been great over the years. I feel like I first started Piware maybe mid-90s. Before that, it was Swollen Fingers and Dustbusters and Erasing.
Little pieces of rubber.
Oh yeah, I still have those. I couldn't quite throw those away. Yeah.
All right. Well, what is your favorite drill move that you've seen from any era that you can't take credit for?
Ooh.
Oh man, this could also get me in trouble, couldn't it?
It can be more than one.
Favorite drill move. You know, I would say I like some of the work that people have done experimenting with some of the three-dimensional type ideas. You know, 95 Cavaliers, Greg Poklocki experiment with the spinning globe. Leon May, when he was at Carolina Crown, was it a diamond?
The diamond that flexed back and forth.
Those kind of things that really play with, you know, it's an illusion, but it looks three-dimensional. I like those type of things. And you know, and I still like those type of things. Now I'm more interested in some of the complexities of staging, like different unique ways of putting different elements together, and in ways that you don't normally see. You know, that kind of is what I like these days. Yeah.
Right. Cool. Well, this one is just a fun one. What was the last thing that you watched on Netflix?
Oh, I just started. Well, no, does it have to be Netflix? Can it be Hulu?
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
What
I just finished.
Whatever you watch.
The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh,
I
wow.
just finished both seas's. Yeah, it's brutal. So
Yeah.
fair warning.
I've done the audiobook, but I haven't
Yeah,
watched the
it's brutal,
series
but
yet.
it's really good. And let me just start. Someone told me to start. Jury's out still, but Netflix was You. I don't know. It's just called
Okay.
You. I
You.
don't know.
Don't
yeah.
know that.
So I have no opinion yet, but
Man,
yeah.
we're so glad you stopped by tonight. Thank you.
always a pleasure.
And
Thank you.
We always look forward to seeing what you bring to the field in the summer and can't wait to see it in 2019.
Thank you. Thanks. We'll see you in 15 years.
Yeah, we'll do this again in 15 years, shall we?
All right.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
Man, we're going to look old by then. Oh, I will anyway.
Yeah.
Tina, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Man.
We got a lot coming up tomorrow, folks. Another jam-packed day of sessions on the schedule for Saturday. Continued focus on health and wellness topics. Look for our coverage to start in the morning with a special live announcement. This is really cool. You don't want to miss this. And we'll also hear from a number of subject matter experts on topics including weather, safety, and mental health. One of my friends, Dr. Kevin Clazel from Oklahoma University, major meteorologist. If you're into meteorology, you know Dr. Kevin Clazel. He's going to be one of the presenters tomorrow. It's going to be a very exciting day, and I'm looking forward to it. So for Michael Gaines and Tina Pliagas, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night.